Welcome to Keeping It Real. We are responsible for every action in life. We may not have caused our problems, but we do have a responsibility to change things for the better. No one else can do it for us. Don't wait till you're feeling better to start doing better. It's by doing better that we start to feel better. There ain't no sanity clause. Keep it real. You've been doing the best you can in difficult times, and it hasn't worked out too well so far. You're going to learn to do better, sleep better, and take your life back. Each workshop begins with an exercise to help us settle in, stepping away from what's been going on in our lives outside. We will begin now. Plant your feet into the floor. Push them down. Notice your entire body and the feeling of gravity flowing down through your head, your spine, your legs, and down into your feet. Notice the muscle tension in your legs as you push your feet down. Notice the floor beneath you, supporting you. Now look around and notice what you can see and hear around you. Notice where you are and what you're doing. Can you see the man running? Can you see the dog? Can you see them both at the same time? What we experience has as much to do with what's in our head as it does with what's going on in our lives. Some of you might be familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Developed in the 1950s, CBT is based on Stoic philosophy, best summed up by Epictetus in his famous saying, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view which they take of them." It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Albert Ellis came up with the idea that we experience something, either outside in the world or in our body. We process that experience, telling ourselves what it means. This gives rise to feelings which move us to behave in certain ways. According to this model, stuff happens. A, but if we change what we think about what's going on, B, we will feel differently about it and we will behave differently. C, this is all very neat. The thing is that this isn't how our brains work. During the last 70 years, we've learned a thing or two about how our brains actually work. Information from our senses about what is going on comes in via our brain stem and is processed by our limbic system before it gets anywhere near our prefrontal cortex. We feel things before we think about them. Our emotions work faster than our thoughts and affect our ability to think critically about what's happening and do something about it. If we want to think clearly about what's going on and take appropriate action, it is a good idea to reduce the impact of our emotions. It's not about controlling our emotions. We feel before we think. It's about not letting our emotions control us. Our emotions are regulated by the release of various chemicals in our brains, and we can activate the release of these chemicals by doing certain things. We are going to focus on 4 chemicals: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Dopamine reinforces learning and behavior. We activate dopamine by remembering positive experiences and good things we've done. It is also activated by imagining that we're doing something nice. Oxytocin is activated by connection. We can get some oxytocin going by hugging someone for about 20 seconds. It's got to be genuine, acts of charity or generosity, or even just thinking, sending good thoughts to someone we know. This is the scientific basis for the Buddhist loving-kindness meditation, or the Christian act of praying for someone. It really does make us feel better. Serotonin is activated by novelty and significance. Planning to do something fun or interesting, getting some anticipation going, and then doing that thing will activate some serotonin. If you later think back to that thing you did, you'll get some dopamine too. Endorphins are activated by putting muscles under stress. Heavy cardiovascular exercise that gets you sweaty and out of breath will activate endorphins. Diaphragmatic breathing does it too. And there's something called the mammalian dive reflex that floods the body with endorphins. This involves tricking the brain into thinking that we've dived into ice-cold water by rapidly cooling the body's thermostat, the trigeminal nerve in the face. So we're going to look at how we get our daily dose. To activate our dopamine, we can visualize a pleasant experience, like lying on a beach. We can review a time when we did something we feel good about. We can do something that is in line with our values. We can do something fun and a bit challenging. We will look at this in more depth in a later video. We can get oxytocin by hugging someone. Remember, we have to mean it. We can give or receive a massage. We can do good things for people, like cooking them a meal, or going shopping for them, or even just taking the time to really listen. We can even just send good thoughts to people we know. This is the scientific basis for the Buddhist practice of loving kindness, or the Christian tradition of praying for someone. It really does make us feel better. We can get some serotonin by planning something, anticipating and doing something, going on a date, for example. We can do something that fills our senses. We can do something we haven't done before. We can get out in the sunlight. It doesn't have to be a sunny day. It's the UV light that matters. And we can do something that means something to us. Cardio is the classic way of activating endorphins. We can also do some diaphragmatic breathing. Indian yogis call this pranayama. Spicy foods and bitter chocolate also stimulate the release of endorphins. Laughing, crying, and singing all flex our diaphragm and release endorphins. So does splashing cold water on our face, or plunging into cold water, like we do in wild swimming, or taking a really cold shower. If we fixate on one thing in our lives, it distorts how we view everything else going on in our lives. This can be a double-edged sword. Getting caught up in our problems and our pain can suck the joy from our lives and make us feel small. Focusing our attention away from things that upset us and turning our mind to something that can improve our lot can help us move towards a more joyful and meaningful life. A word of caution here. Watson's research showed us that our brain will try to apply what we did that worked in one situation to an increasing number of other situations that are a bit like it. Having identified something that works, it is on the lookout for other things it might work for, and starts looking for signs that it would be a good time to do that thing. If all you have is a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail. In the end, more and more things will trigger the feelings that we're trying to control or avoid, and that useful tool we found will have become a crutch that we feel anxious without. Some people call this the problem of instant gratification, the pig. It starts off as a little thing, begging for some food and attention. Then, as you feed it, it gets bigger and stronger and even bigger and stronger still until it's no longer asking, it's telling you, feed me. Feeding the pig is like treading water. If you're out of your depth, treading water can keep you from going under, but it takes energy. Soon enough, you'll get tired, and then the next wave that comes will take you under. We have to swim for shore. We can tread water for a bit while we work out where we have to go, but then we actually have to go there. The way our brain works means that we feel things before we think about them. We can't stop the feeling for long. It keeps coming back. We can decide how we will respond to that feeling. This course isn't about stopping the waves, it's about learning to surf. We may not have caused our problems, but we do have a responsibility to change things for the better. No one else can do it for us. If we want to think clearly about what's going on and take appropriate action, it is a good idea to reduce the impact of our emotions. It's not about controlling our emotions. We feel before we think. It's about not letting our emotions control us. Our emotions are regulated by the release of various chemicals in our brains, and we can activate the release of these chemicals by doing certain things. If we fixate on one thing in our lives, it distorts how we view everything else going on in our lives. This can be a double-edged sword. Getting caught up in our problems and our pain can suck the joy from our lives and make us feel small. Focusing our attention away from things that upset us and turning our mind to something that can improve our lot can help us move towards a more joyful and meaningful life. Using the strategies we discussed earlier, we can bring ourselves back to equilibrium and decide how we want to show up and live life as we want to. It's not enough to regain equilibrium. We actually have to make some changes. If we don't, we're going to have the same stuff showing up again and again. We will go into this stuff in more detail in the other videos in this series. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. Look after yourself and think about how you would like to show up in your life. Until next time, keep it real.